Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to share the microphone today because we're the dynamic duo, I suppose. I'm Josh, and this is Kelly, and we're Humus Beings from Earth. And we feel a deep connection to the health and well-being of the Earth and humans that walk on it.
And this is the clicker. Yeah. After following that panel that just happened, it gives me even more fire in my belly for what it is that we're doing. This industry talks a lot about how healthy cannabis is for you, but they don't ask the question, what is healthy cannabis? What is good cannabis? And unfortunately, it's very difficult to find totally clean, non-toxic cannabis in this industry, especially in Canada. We are dearly behind on the ball. It's important that cannabis is grown totally healthy, and it is grown with intention, and it is grown with full respect for the plant. This plant has given us so much, and I feel like we owe it to the plant. So today, we're here to bust the myths of big ag, big pharma, and the grow bros.
We like to think of the cannabis plant as a wise elder that has an amazing story to tell that we are learning more about every day. And we do have an evolutionary ethnobotanical connection to this plant among many. So we feel like it's an opportunity to talk about cannabis, psilocybin, all of the natural plant medicines that are here at this event. And we feel like it's an incredible opportunity for us to take back our power and to take back our strength and walk forward in this paradigm where there's a lot of doom and gloom out there. So we're going to show you all a different way to cultivate and a different way to think about your gardens and the environment around you.
And we wanted to talk about the gift that cannabis has given us. Cannabis remediates human beings, and it also remediates soils. And it's incredibly important that where we grow this cannabis, that it's not remediating toxins that are in the soil. We know that a large amount of Canadian soil has been given over to big ag. And with those big ag practices come an incredible amount of toxins, GMOs, fungicides, I could go on and on. And if you were to take that field that has toxins and you were to grow hemp in it, all of the hemp is going to remediate that and come right up into the body of the plant. This happens with indoor growing as well. So if people are adding their regular NPK, that goes right up into the flower, and then you combust it and you smoke it. So the idea that all cannabis is good for you is totally untrue. All cannabis is not good for us. Healthy, organic cannabis is what we all need to be striving for.
And after watching this panel, we can see the kind of ailments that come within our body. And we would like to point out that the earth is our body. We come from the earth. And if we've created medicine that's not in harmony for the earth, then have we actually progressed? Have we made it to a place where we feel like we're ahead and we're moving forward and we feel like the profits are worth it? From our point of view, we like to see a business model or a group or a co-op come together with, instead of a pyramid style mentality where at the top of the pyramid you have the money and the profits and everything that's going to drive you forward and everything all builds towards that. What we would like to see is a dharma wheel or a medicine wheel or a circular shape that includes all of the aspects, what we've chosen, these eight words that mean a lot to us. And without all 8 of those being represented in moving forward, then we have a lopsided wheel and we're not able to roll properly.
And we really encourage you all to ask when you're opening up these businesses or setting up your micro licenses or even growing your 4 plants or setting up these huge, massive, multi-billion-dollar LPs, how do you measure success? This is a sentient being that we're working with. This is not just something that you can cash in. It's very important that we think about whether we're recreating with the plant or whether we're using it for medicine, that it all is going into our body and is going to affect the way that we think, it is going to affect the way that we feel, and it is going to affect our long-term health and also our genetics looking into the future.
And we're only as healthy as the land that we live on. We're only as healthy as the water we breathe and the air, the water that we drink and the air that we breathe. And if large-scale agriculture and cannabis growers are talking about flushing their weed or flushing their synthetics, my question is, where are you flushing it to? I think you're flushing into the water system, and I think that there's a big problem with that. And we're going to show you some examples of how you can incorporate biodiversity, healthy landscapes, and still cultivate cannabis.
And we believe that one of the largest reasons why humanity is so sick today is because our soil is sick. So the healthy microbiome that is in the soil is absolutely no different than the healthy microbiome that is inside of our gut. So when you have a plant that is working on synthetics, then it's absolutely no different. That plant has the same kind of intelligence as if you were feeding yourself through an IV feeding tube. It bypasses the general microbiome within your body in the same way that if you're feeding your plant synthetics, it's bypassing its natural resources to be able to uptake nutrients.
And it's microorganisms and gut bacteria and flora that help us think properly and make good decisions.
And so when you're treating the soil with a lot of probiotics and you're allowing beneficial fungi, beneficial bacteria to grow within that soil, then the plant releases out of its root cycle sugars that then attract different type of microorganisms. It's a higher biological intelligent way to grow your plants. So the plant has the ability, when it's grown in an organic situation, to be able to uptake nutrients and food 3 separate ways. 1 through foliar, 1 through direct feeding, and 1 through exudate feeding, which is what I'm talking about within this soil microbiome. And that's very important because when you feed it synthetically, it is reduced to the intelligence, a lack of intelligence, that it can only feed one way, and that's direct feeding. So when a plant is only getting direct feeding over and over and over, what happens to the genetics over long time? We're going to be having fungi infections, PM, everybody knows about it. It's no different than a yeast infection inside of a human body. We cannot separate it. That plant is sick. It's not just, oh, this plant has some kind of PM. Let me spray more toxins on it to get rid of that, and then that just creates a cycle of chaos. So what we're saying here is that we believe that when you give the plant the highest intelligence that it can possibly uptake feeding, then we are on the right path for growing this plant intentionally.
We believe in the healthy intelligence of Mother Nature, and we believe in the intelligence of our body, and we know that really the only thing that kills cancer cells, for example, is our immune system. Mm-hmm. The only thing that really cures cancer in the earth is raw materials, composting. You can remediate sick soils through composting.
And when we test, the microbiome and the digestive tract of Crohn's patients, IBS patients, cancer patients, patients with mental illness, what they're missing is a healthy microbiome. There's a massive amount of microbiology that is missing inside of this gut. And a lot of us say, well, hey, we could take probiotics. Well, probiotics is awesome, but it only takes care of the upper digestive tract, and it's only going to last in your system for 72 hours. But the type of biology that lasts in our system for an entire lifetime that you would be inoculating with is actually the same microorganisms that are found in the soil. So it's very important. Why are we separating this idea of health and happiness or of a healthy environment from, our own health?
And like Dr. Ethan Russo taught us this morning, and many other people have, it's the diversity in the terpenes and the diversity in the cannabinoids that really bring out the true healing. And the plant is producing secondary metabolites to have that type of medicine. And the way that it can really do that is by having a diverse microbiology in the soil. The more biology you have and diversity you have in your soil, the more that it can produce healthy trichomes.
So that last picture that you just saw, maybe Josh can go back. The last picture that you just saw is, we're going to give you some ideas of how you can create a healthy microbiome in your growing systems, or how you can, not even for cannabis, but even for your fruits and vegetables. How can I make my soil healthier so I can make my family healthier? So that the food that I eat and the plants that I'm going to smoke or I'm going to extract and I'm going to give to patients or to my friends is of the highest quality. This is a picture of fermentation. We're not going to go into the recipes of fermentation. You all can definitely get a hold of us.
And probably tomorrow we'll be able to talk more about that.
Yeah, and we have a panel tomorrow, a cultivation panel. We'll be able to go into more details. But what we see as one of the greatest gifts in growing cannabis is the leaves and stalks. You've taken all of your money, all of your energy, all of your effort, and you've grown these beautiful plants, and then what do? You compost them or you throw them away in the trash?
And I'd like to challenge the licensed producers, because there's a lot of rules in the systems that say you have to defoliate your plants and then dispose of them and make them non-usable again. But I do believe you can create compost piles and worm farms and put it back into your soil. There are ways you can bypass that system to create health for your gardens rather than more garbage for the earth.
Yep. Soil building, it's another one. Here's just a picture of our garden and building soil, constantly layering different types of soil. If you don't have a soil to start with, you can go out into the forest and you can gather just a small amount to inoculate whatever soil that you have to make it living. A lot of people can run organics and they're just adding organic material, but we're talking about a living soil that's fully living and breathing and creating exudates for those plants to uptake.
So on our farm, we have a nutrient company and we have products, but on our farm, we only use what's on our land. So what we call that a closed loop system. We're only using weeds that are on our land. And one of the ways we do that is by having a really amazing soil. And what makes a really amazing soil from our point of view is a lot of fungi. Bacteria and fungi and organic matter, there's a ratio where that all needs to be in place, but adding wood and hay and different things to your garden promote the life of fungi, and fungi directly feed the roots and work together in unison, and they're the most vigorous decomposers. And instead of having a farm that you're flushing out toxins into the waterways, we've created a biofilter that's actually cleaning up anything that comes on our earth, and it goes into the system and just promotes biology on our earth. So we have these gardens that we mulch and we put life into it every year, and it helps us, move forward.
And it's really getting out of the idea, what we're talking about here is changing the paradigm of change that you don't need to feed your plants. We all need to stop feeding our plants. We need to start feeding the soil. The soil knows how to feed the plants. So let's let them do their job. We are trying to overthink how we need to grow this plant, and what's happening in lieu of it all is our cannabinoid profiles are reducing. We're down to just myrcene as a terpene, and the plant doesn't have anything that is gonna be necessary bioavailable to you, nor is it gonna help you out with any kind of ailments that you have. And I don't know about recreating. I don't like to recreate on that stuff. That's just me.
So living soils, people talk about living soils. What is a living soil? A living soil isn't just a soil that you put together with a bunch of, organisms and raw materials. You have to add organisms to it, and you have to keep adding raw materials, because it's living when it's consuming something and when it's eating something. If it's just sitting there and you're just watering it and it's just living, that's not really a fully living system. And you can have continuous living systems by using worms. And you can use biodynamics by, taking manure and putting it in horns and burying it for the next season. And these can all be done indoors too, and we're gonna show you examples of that. Most of ours are outdoors because we really believe in using less electricity to produce cannabis.
And that goes into another thought that we were having, is that as we enter into the market, a lot of people are going to be getting micro licenses. It's going to be very hard to sell your prices at 15 cents per gram, which is the lowest that I heard that it might be offered here in Canada. How in the world can small farmers keep up with that? The way that you can keep up with it is reduce your costs and have the fire, and grow the highest quality cannabis that you possibly can. And we feel that the number one way to do that is through biology, creating a healthy soil microbiome, and also light depping. So that's something that we do on our farm. We light dep our greenhouses so that you're done by September 1st. So you don't have to deal with the molds and the fungi that are coming in, and this idea of yields going down or not high quality, it's totally false.
And this type of micro life that you see on the roots are the hyphae and the fungal filaments that go out, and that's the computer system, and that's the true secret of metabolism. So we always talk about whether you're in a greenhouse or indoors to use living beds and use living soils, because that's going to give you the best. The beautiful thing about these type of systems is they do cost less money. It takes a little more effort and a lot less money. And in this paradigm where we work in the US and in Colorado and California and Oregon, and we've seen the destruction of recreational and legalization, and we've seen farms, the problems they've had to go with. So coming up with a natural system is extremely important.
Also, we do recognize the way that cannabis grows in nature, that it's a social plant. And the reason why we know that is because in nature, it drops many, many seeds. So all around it will grow the offspring and the next, genetics of that particular plant. So it likes to grow together. And when you grow your plants together in really large beds, you can actually see the communication through the root system that they're having. When we isolate plants in individual pots, they can't help each other. So there's an incredible communication that's going on underneath the soil that we don't even really know about. But what we do know is that when we have gone into really large facilities that have had pots or have worked in, hydroponic situations, and we switch them over to living soils where all of the plants are communicating, they're seeing incredible results with genetics that they may have been running for 10 years.
Same clones, they've been running the same clone for 15 years, then they go into living bed with all these living soils and fermented, and all of a sudden their cannabinoid rates go up 3-4%. And their terpene
CBG levels seem to be going up tremendously as soon as the plants are able to communicate in the soil. And we know that the cannabinoid CBG is a catalyst for other cannabinoids.
This is an example of garden giants, the King Stropharia mushroom, and this is a recreational plant in Oregon, track and trace. It has the barcode right there, and they're growing these mushrooms, these mycorrhizal fungi mushrooms underneath their ganja, and it's a way that the ganja is enabled to reach farther into the earth. They use less water, which water is a really big issue in a lot of grows, and it retains it and builds the microlife in the soil.
Biodiversity. If you have the ability and you are working with living soil, even if you're in a large pot or even if you're in a small pot, biodiversity is incredibly important because that's the true biological intelligence that Mother Nature has taught us. We know that in clear-cut situations, when you go back into, a clear cut, they've cut it all down, they just plant one type of tree, the fir. Well, it has lost all of its intelligence because it doesn't have diversity. And diversity is just really important because it talks to one another.
It helps regulate the system. It helps regulate the environment, pests. You invite predators in to balance the pests out. When you have diversity, it's a form of communication with your garden. You can have fuchsia plants hanging in your greenhouse, and broad mites are more likely to go to the fuchsia plants than they are to the cannabis, so that would be your form of communication. You would see leaves crinkle with your, and by the way, broad mites, we won't go into it, but you have to have a microscope. It's not like spider mites where you can see white dots.
They're not resin glands on the bottom of leaves.
To grow healthy these days, you really have to have a microscope. You have to be able to look at the bottom of your leaves, and you have to be able to identify eggs. You have to know the difference between resin glands and broad mite eggs, and that's a real teaching that we won't go deep into right now.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why Josh has mentioned
yields.
that is because we have yet to walk into a garden in Canada that does not have broad mites. So a lot of people think that they have clean gardens because clean means something totally different to them. What is clean? It's a really good question. Is clean a sterile environment, or is clean something that is going to keep you healthy?
And we believe that using these plants that are part of our diversity in our teas adds more terpenes to our flowers because it's just the diversity of the compounds in there. We're using nettles, we'll use flowers, we have more pictures. We grow them all in conjunction, so there's this thriving immune system happening within the environment.
Here's a picture of one of our greenhouses. You can see that we have nettle, kale, we have tomatillos, tomatoes, and we encourage people, that are getting their micro license, have secondary products. You know, it's important that you're not just gonna just grow cannabis. If we have this ability to really grow these beautiful soils, grow your potatoes. Fingerling potatoes do amazing underneath cannabis plants, and tomatoes on the side of them. And you've already spent all of your money on the nutrients that you're gonna be feeding your cannabis plants. Have something that's gonna be feeding your family as well.
And since it's extremely difficult to, once it becomes legal, it can be, there's too much herb on the market, and you have to be really crafty about how you sell it, because it's just, how do you do it? Everyone has this, and the quality goes down. So, you know, we have farmers that bring their fingerling potatoes to the dispensary, and they don't even sell, they give the potatoes away to people, and it shows who they are, it shows their farm, it gives an opportunity to tell their story. And like the farm to table, and like the organic movement or the wine movement, you know, we need to come into our culture with, you know, micro producing and craft cultivation, which we see as organic cultivation.
Here's a picture of hugelkultur. It's been given a name. Hugel means mound or hill, and it's hill culture. So a lot of people say, well, I don't really have dirt. We live on a large acre parcel, or not an acre, we live on lots of acre parcel, and our land is just, if you put a pickaxe into it, you just hit a rock. And we thought, oh geez, how are we gonna get into the ground? You don't need to get into the ground. You can go above the ground. This is a perfect example of a first year garden that we decided, oh, let's just take all of the branches, all of the leaves, you could do stems and stalks from your cannabis plant, whatever it takes, any kind of biomass material, and you just pile it up into the areas of the beds that you would like to create.
And then cover it in a compost or the dirt, the local indigenous soil next to it, so you sort of dig out channels along the side. So let's point out another thing right now. One thing that makes cannabis unique from place to place, or wines unique from place to place, is what's known as an appellation.
Or a terroir.
An appellation is an area of production, and terroir is the earth which that appellation has, and the terroir has a certain set of microorganisms which brings out certain flavors. So when you're in an area that is unique, you have the ability to grow cannabis in a way that no one else does. So the only way you can have a true appellation, there's people, plenty of farms all over the place, when they sell their cannabis, they're selling their terpenes, their cannabinoids, their appellation, and their terroir. It's
and
really
the specific
important.
strain that might grow well in that area. So if you have a whole bunch of plants and you've got one plant that's doing phenomenally well in that, well, cultivate that plant. That's the one that's biologically intelligent to your region, your area, your soil. You can't get terroir from pots.
Pots don't exist. You're just buying a commercial soil from anywhere, and your terroir is not actually terroir. It's probably in a pot, and the pots dry out fast, and microorganisms can't live in a thing that's drying out all the time. So when you connect it, we'll continue here. So another thing that brings, what we represent is the breeders, the culture. We live in British Columbia. We're from the West Coast. We've been all over. We've been, working with these farms, and what we really have is genetics, and not us personally, but this is what it's an open pollination. The way that cannabis works, it's an open source. It's not to be owned. The beauty of it is you start owning something and it's going to be outdated in like 2 weeks.
And the beauty of the cannabis plant is it's totally adaptogenic, so we should really try not to outsmart it. Now we're going to talk about our Pure Certification, which Salome had opened up originally. We decided, pretty much out of anger and frustration, that the regular organic certifications, the USDA organic certification, and the Canadian certification, and many other third-party certifications which are based off of that, really didn't represent what we are. 30% of those things that you see in the market could be non-organic and totally toxic, but still have an organic label on it. It's absolutely horrifying.
And we don't trust big ag or the pharmaceutical people, because look where they've gotten us. So we're not saying we don't appreciate that. What we're saying is we really love the other stuff. So what we did, and the organic certification didn't exist for cannabis because it wasn't federally legal at the time, and there was farms that were bringing flowers to the market with zero accountability. We're talking Colorado, Oregon, California, everywhere that we went. And so we said, you know what, we're gonna make a difference. We're not gonna just say this bottled nutrient has this type of, test that works and stuff. What we're saying is you have to use closed loop systems. You have to grow flowers, you have to grow food, because just having an acre or a 20-acre cannabis farm is still monoculturing. It's not actually saving our environment. We need to have interplanted flowers and fruit trees around our farms.
And what Josh means by closed loop is that no amendments have been brought into that area, to that farm, to that facility. All nutrients are being made on site from biomass that has been grown on that property, or they're utilizing the cannabis plant to put it right back into the soils. So the Pure Certification now, we started it out of frustration, and now it is all over the world, and we have about 85 farms and a whole lot of dispensaries that are Pure Certified. And what it is it's community monitored and community run. And what we mean by that is Josh and I might take the first call of a farm that's looking to be Pure Certified, but it's those people in that area that are the neighbors, that are other Pure farmers that go to that farm and certify that farm. And they ask that question, does this farm represent my farm? Does this seal represent my products?
And it's really, really easy to hide your nutrients or things that you don't want to see from an inspector that you know is on their way. It's easy. Anyone can do it.
And people do it
but
all the
you
time.
Can't hide that from your friend or your uncle or the people that have been.
Neighbor.
They watch you go into the store every day, all the time. So this certification is free. We built a certification that's free because we feel like it's actually more powerful, because you can't just plug and play. You can't just get a farm, buy a certification, and now you're just the example for cannabis. The people that we're working with are the ones that have brought this forward to begin with.
And here's some pictures of some of those farms that are Pure Certified. So we wanted to let you know that it can be done on a mass scale. It can be done in a way that's totally regenerative, ecologically viable, and also healthy for us. Again, whether we're recreating or whether we're using as medicine.
And our certification does not allow pots, so all the greenhouses that you see, all the indoor operations are all living soils, all beds.
And here's an example of a beautiful, huge light depth greenhouse that's in all long living soil beds. You can see ultimate health. Amazing. Another example of another small greenhouse. This particular farmer has about 10 of these on his farm. So this is just one and he's made a great soil. He's utilizing all of the natural soil around his area to mix in. He's doing a cover cropping that you can see underneath the plants there, because we feel like that creates biodiversity in the bed, and it also creates nutrients, very basic nutrients.
And there's an interesting thing going on here. This is Alpenglow Farms in Humboldt, and they're in the Humboldt area. They created a grow-off, which is a clone that they're given to all different farms, and they're all growing it a different way. And at the end of the year, at the end of this year, they're all going to test all the clones. You're going to know exactly what they were grown in. You're going to know exactly what inputs went into it, and you're going to know all of the cannabinoids and all the terpenes that came from it. And by the time you go to the Emerald Cup in December, you're going to have all the information. It's not even a thing you have to convince anyone of. It's just purely right there for you.
This is just a really easy, this is an example of a bunch of seed plants that were grown in BC. This is how easy it can be. A light depth greenhouse can easily be put up and light depth with a tarp. Just be done in early September. And this is what that does. So the idea that yields can't happen with living soil is ridiculous.
Absolutely not true.
Is ridiculous.
Not only can it be done in a way that is elegant, it can be done in a way that's artistic, it can be done in a way that feels good to walk into. You could bring your aunt or your uncle who are not super into it, and they can come in and go, wow, this is a very pretty place and really wonderful.
This is an example of something that we've been working on with a lot of other growers in areas that get a lot of high wind or fluctuation in temperature. We know that fluctuation in temperature causes the plant to be a little bit stressed. This greenhouse is 12 feet into the ground. It's called a walipini. We call it a canopini now.
Or a pit greenhouse.
Or a pit greenhouse.
Stable temperatures.
It's able to have stable temperatures and geothermal capabilities while still getting the sun.
We dug this out 40 feet wide, 70 feet long, and just built beds off of soil, different soils on our property. This whole entire greenhouse is grown off of soil we made on our property and weeds that we turned into water, weed water.
And there is about 4 other facilities in Colorado, because Colorado is so flat, it has incredible fluctuation in temperature and high winds.
But a lot of sun.
And people are growing huge, massive, beautiful gardens underground. Here's another picture of that.
She's looking at a hemp plant. That's a high CBD hemp plant in the middle growing next to THC plants. So we grow all seed plants, which allows us to really see the character within each plant and allows us to see the diversity in the end. So this is a recreational farm in Oregon that happened last year. They didn't know exactly what they were gonna do. In Oregon, it's, the fall cuts out quick, so they did a hops style cable system, and they pulled those tarps.
Yeah, so we went out to consult this farm, and they had already planted it, and they wanted to be Pure certified because they had planted into the ground. They didn't know how they were gonna do it. So we helped design this system of light depping, and this was one of the most incredible, most awesome flowering farms that we had really ever seen. So here's another example of it being done right.
And this was all, they went to Hawaii, studied from Master Cho, full natural farming, and they grew 3,000 pounds.
Yep, so it can be done. Here's another picture of just plants being in the ground in Northern Cali, another Pure certified farm. And
yeah, this is an example where when you grow next to the forest and when you grow next to other trees and other plants, and when you use mycorrhizal fungi and bacteria and you use like living soils, then you give your garden an opportunity to communicate with trees and with plants next door. And there's, tons of examples of interspecies connecting, and that's what we feel like is the true health.
And there are a whole lot of forest gardens in BC and a lot of forest gardens in Northern Cali, and we have seen tremendous health in those gardens that are next to the forests. This is a really beautiful picture. This entire farm is a 10-acre farm. They planted, I believe, 5 full acres on this farm, and this is a...
No, 1 acre. It's a 1-acre recreational farm in Oregon. They have 80 acres. This is Green Source Gardens. If you haven't heard of Green Source Gardens, look them up. They're really amazing. They've fully transformed their whole entire 1-acre field like the Hugo culture style with the sticks from their land. And the only thing they bring on their property to create this is hay for their animals. And they have donkey, cow, horse, chickens, and the only thing they bring for their whole entire recreational thing is hay.
And we wanted to show you this picture because this is a first-year Hugo culture. They came onto the land, they had no money, they spent all of their money and all of their fees to be able to get their recreational license, which I'm thinking is coming. And they had nothing to grow with, and they grew the most beautiful garden out of simple Hugo culture and manure and hay. Here's an indoor facility that we worked with really pretty much from the inception of, this is in Nevada. They have the strictest testing standards for microbials, the strictest testing standards for toxicities.
They were the only organic producing medicine farm in all of Nevada, and they're outside of Las Vegas, and they invested in LED lighting and living beds.
So from the beginning, they wanted to do it right. So they came to us and they said, how is it that we can do this properly? And we said, you gotta go with living soils immediately. And these guys had their jaws dropped to the ground. What do you mean? That's not at all what our plan was. And now these guys are on their, I wanna say
13th cycle.
13th cycle,
and
no changing of soil. They're exchanging, and they're getting higher yields.
There's people going out of business all over the place. They're expanding. They're opening up a new one.
Yep, and their yields are higher than ever at the 13th cycle.
And they utilize soil testing after every single cycle so that they can better understand their soil, and they're working with soil scientists and friends within the industry to help. This is what we're talking about. This is an example of everyone working together. We can all be from different walks of life. We can all have different companies. We can have different businesses. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings really trying to do the best we can. So we really encourage everyone to share information with each other, because it's when we all come together that we really share the information, that we all grow. Not one of us needs to grow while everyone else is wondering what happened there.
And we really encourage those of you who don't have a lot of experience with the cannabis plant but are looking into this as just a business opportunity to talk to those people who have close relationships with the plant. Josh and I have been doing this for almost 3 decades. We have an incredible relationship with the plant. There's so many people out here in this audience. There's a lot of people in BC that have been underground because of the illegality of this plant. I really encourage you all to go and talk to people who have a relationship with the plant and who have a tight, close, loving relationship with the plant, because they are the ones that are going to help guide you into this future so that you can grow intentionally.
So we have flowers all over the gardens. We really appreciate bees, and we really appreciate pollinators. And for example, biological sprays that people use for their pest and fungal management can potentially harm bees. So it's really, really important if you start getting you want to do things organically, you got nervous, you want to spray something, you go, oh, I found this biological spray at the store. It says that I can only spray during this time. As soon as it starts to say you can only spray during this time of day, you don't want it anymore. Because there is no actual example of bees fall asleep on the plant all the time. Like you see them, falling asleep. So, we want to see the expansion of bees. We know that's another place where modern agriculture has let us down. I mean, the toxins are killing the beehives. And so what we're trying to do is turn our farm into an oasis of life on Earth. So we feel like we're expanding life on Earth because we have birds' nests all over the place. We're generating worms and all these beautiful things.
And this is a good example. We've put all of our flowers next to our cannabis gardens, because pollinators are not just honeybees. Pollinators are also wasps. And I don't know if you all know, but wasps eat 3 times their weight in aphids in a day. And now we have the bong aphid that has entered. That's a whole different type of conversation, but if you all have it, feel free to get in touch with us. We can help you out with an integrated pest management program that's totally healthy. The other important reason not to spray your leaves and plants is what we talked about earlier, is that it's a valuable resource that you're just throwing away, because if you've sprayed it with a bunch of heavy oils or pesticides or anything like that, it's done. You cannot use those leaves anymore. You do not want to put them back into your soil. So keeping totally clean leaves so that you know it's the next product and it's going to be nutrients for your next gardens.
So we use a lot of predators in our gardens. We encourage predators to come into our gardens by using biodiversity, but we also use predators in a preventative way, and that allows us to keep the cyanobacteria on our leaves, which allows us to keep our plants healthy. So use predators instead of sprays.
Here's a bee. And we just wanted to show you that this is what's happening in cannabis right now. And we want to show you of what else can happen in cannabis.
We have a tremendous amount of love and respect for everyone here. Thank you all for what you do. We love and appreciate you all.
Thank you so much.
Come see us at our booth. We'll be talking tomorrow at the Cultivation Classic. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much to Salome and all of her people who have helped put this together.